NOS4A22, Book 2, Trust No One, Chapter 4, The Fun Stuff. Stuart and Cammy spent much time in the old funeral home, just being weird together, yet alone. They could spend most of the day next to each other without speaking out loud. They could just find solace in the fact that the other was there. This was because after Stu first took Cammy on that first foggy night body pickup, he introduced her to the concept of drug-induced cannibalism. The conversation sparked her inner essence and meaning of life in her eyes. "I want to live," Cammy said with a drawn-out response. "Well, I hope so," Stu ever so simply replied. "I would rather talk to myself than most people, you know that, right?" Cammy gave the most honest depiction of her inner heart. "Yes, I do," Stu instantly and immediately replied. "I've never felt love, but the closest thing to it I ever felt was when I met you," Cammy calmly said. "Obsession and lust. This is love to me. The driving forces." Stu stated his truth and laid it on the table. "You already knew before I said it," Cammy stayed straight-faced while smiling with her words. "How can this be? Are you reliving this on some other end of the earth in your imagination?" Stu couldn't hold in his stoic philosophical question. "Yes, there's something like this, but I'm also here with you. It's the beauty of the universe," Cammy said, as if she were tapping into the very core of Stu's heart of hearts. "So you really like this idea of ascending to a higher plane of existence?" Stu asked sincerely. "Of course I like the idea, but what's important is the truth of the matter, which is fascinating beyond merely interesting." Cammy hit Stu with a mental bomb. "That's deep. It's easy to glide upon the surface of an iceberg. To get into the matter is when experience determines if it be gracious or detrimental to one's fate." Stu impressed himself with his response. "Okay, Mr. Smarty Pants, so in layman terms, everyone likes an idea when it sounds good or appealing. No one likes a good-sounding idea that turns unfruitful. This is worse than even the most horrific bad idea because not only is it etched in the stone of life, but it is also reality's experienced nightmare." Cammy hit him with a brick of analytic intellect. "Precisely. How can a terrible idea be worse than a real-life experience that has caused a lasting impression through cause and effect? An outlived idea can only go so far before it is shut down and buried under actual real-life moments," Stu retorted in a professor's fashion. "Well said, Stewie." She gave a minuscule grin. "Don't call me that ever again, please." Stu's personality changed. "Okay, but you know you're going to have to give an explanation beyond this demand." Cammy was still stuck in intellectual debate mode. "Fair enough. My mom called me that. Stu is a nickname that only has bad memories connected to it." Stu stayed as concise as he could, along with getting the point across. "You know what's weird? The phrase 'getting the point across'." She struck Stu with wonder and amazement. "You're in my head and I don't like it." He couldn't help but speak words from the heart to Cammy, even if it meant self-destruction. "Come on, you know what I mean." Getting implies receiving when the phrase is explaining sharing a perception through ideology. The point is actually a metaphor for a path that is shot out directly towards the mark. The mark, of course, can be anyone or thing. So the phrase "getting the point across" should literally be sharing the path of enlightenment through the darkness of mental barriers. Cammy hit Stu with a flashbolt of literary reflection. "That is what the experience is, and we will be sharing the path of enlightenment through the darkness of mental barriers." Stu felt as if he were only reiterating his own thoughts from his heart. "Then let's do it," Cammy pressed onward. "Okay, so obviously the corpse is not like the drug addict who already has the drugs in their body, so instead of injecting formaldehyde We will siphon in the compound of liquid psychedelic mushrooms, acid LSD, peyote, and angel dust PCP. You can help me, Stu happily said with his expressionless face. Ooh, now you're talking, Cammy said with enormous excitement. Here, put this one in here and that one here. Stu guided Cammy's hands with his to the body of this older man who had died of asthma. Piece of cake, she said as she stuck the siphon tubes in the dead flesh. You're a natural, all right. Now all you gotta do is flip that switch and the machine will do the rest, Stu said as he gleamed with blissful primal lust. Cammy slipped the switch and watched the blood come out, while the mostly clear yellowish-brown tinted liquid was pumped into the old corpse. Once the embalming process was complete, they each held a surgical knife in their left hands and cut on either side of the torso, peeling back the flesh to expose the muscle tissue under the abdomen. They proceeded to cut through the fibers to expose the kidneys and all vital organs in the lower abdominal area. We'll start with the liver, Stu said like a documentary narrator as he cut it in half. They each took their half of the liver and succulently savored the morsel in their mouths. Then they each held a kidney and touched them together as if they were giving salutations with wine glasses. After they bit in and forced down a couple good gulped bites, Cammy uncontrollably vomited on herself. It's okay. I'm surprised you didn't vomit sooner. It's a natural first-time reaction. I puked the first time I smelled coagulated blood. Stu reassured her that all was normal. But you were a kid. She looked at Stu as he cleaned her up with a wet rag and a dry hand towel. Yeah, but I still puked in my mouth when I first ate that corpse, he admitted so that Cammy might feel better. Okay, well, let's keep going. She ate as much as she could, just like Stu, until they were full. They had drunk the siphoned spinal fluid, along with the brain and intestinal blend. Now they experienced together in harmonious joy the ecstasy that came with the euphoria from drug-induced cannibalism, as they now were on this new higher realm and plane of existence. Stu had taught her now how to make thigh-bone flutes, and they sat for almost 5 hours playing music together, sitting with their legs crossed on the floor in the art gallery. So-called normal people in society can never experience the happiness that flowed and glowed through them, as they were beautifully in tune with each other, not just musically but vibrationally. Stewart still couldn't believe Cammy was real, and neither could she believe that Stu was real. It was a divine meeting, or infernal rather. Do you want to know my only rule in life I live by? Stu asked. Yes, tell me your secrets, Cammy, intrigued in excitement, asked intently. Just as Stu began to open his mouth, Cammy said along with him, Trust no one. That was amazing, Stu smiled. You're amazing, hehe, Cammy quickly answered. This is too much. Stu changed his personality. Better than not enough, right? Cammy gave a snide grin. She jumped on him yet again, and it was surreal. This couldn't be reality. How could this be reality? None of this could be real. But it was as real as the air we breathe. It was more real than anything anyone had ever felt or experienced in this fucked world, no matter how insane it was. God damn it, I'm horny, Stu said with a grin. Good for you, asshole. Cammy jumped up quickly, then pulled her pants down, bent over, and spread her ass cheeks with her hands. Stewart wanted to plow right on in. His most inner instinct and basic reaction was frozen by something. All he could do was stare until he was broken. Cammy broke the stare by giving up the charade. Sorry, Stu caught himself only because the stare Cammy gave. What are you doing? She was really angry. He put his hands on her ass cheeks like he had just touched the Holy Grail, and she gave a slight jump as she arched her back while he tongue-fucked her asshole as if it were the sweetest honeycomb on earth. It was to him. He just couldn't stop sliding and poking his pointed tongue in and out of her nice clean butthole. He enjoyed it so much, he had to grab her hips and press her ass against his face, smothering himself. She loved it and began bouncing her cheeks against his face as he motioned the same with his hands on her hips. Soon after about 5 or 10 good minutes of this, he was leaking semen out of his dick without even touching himself, so he put his cock in slowly, all the way in her beautiful perky round ass, and immediately began pumping her asshole with a ton of cum. He stayed incredibly rock hard and began to fuck her ass passionately for a good solid half hour until he came a ton more. She shit a puddle of cum on the floor, and it just made him want to fuck her ass some more, and he did, this time for an hour, making her come a second most intense time. They were a real match made in heaven. The two laid on the carpet floor in a zombie-like state, as if sleeping while wide awake in their drug-induced bliss. Stewart lay on his back, staring into the decaying popcorn asbestos ceiling, as if it were the stars on a moonless night in the mountains. Small particles of harmful dust were constantly in the air, and you could catch them randomly with your eye in rays of light. Cammy lay her face on his chest with his chin on the top of her head. She was laughing because his chest hairs were tickling her nose. Cammy brought up her hand and itched her nose with her 2 index and middle fingers as she giggled from the chest hairs tickling and itching, finding their way up her nose. She looked at him in the eyes, almost too close to focus. Tomorrow, I want you to come in my ass and stay inside until you fall asleep. Then when you wake up, I want you to keep fucking me. My God, you're an angel from heaven sent down to earth just for me. He kissed her frantically as he put his hands gently on her face to bring her lips to his. No, I'm not. I'm your new neighbor. She brought her head back quickly in between passionate kissing. The 2 lovebirds kissed until they fell asleep on each other in the odd hours of the morning. When they woke, the room was dark, and it confused Cammy. She thought it was night, although it was 10 a.m. She stumbled for anything recognizable, and this made Stu clumsily jump up to help her find the old drawstring light switch hanging from the ceiling. She smiled naughtily, yet innocently, as the realization set in. You thought it was nighttime, didn't you? Stu smiled back at her. Yeah, I didn't know where I was. She bashfully blushed with a cute grin. How he could have been so lucky, Stu had no idea. He thought of himself as a total freak of nature, and here was his soulmate. How could this be? He thought in the moment of admiration. How on earth could this be? You're amazing, he said uncontrollably. How? Why? Because I became so disoriented that I made you laugh? Cammy knew he wasn't laughing, but still, he then said, I'm not laughing. I'm just in love, Stu said with an all too serious look. I know, me too. I love you, Stu. She walked up to him and honked his penis 2 times, as if it were a clown horn, and smiled naughtily, then asked, Now where's the next body? First, we gotta order more drugs, Stu quickly insisted. How do you order drugs? She emphasized. Online. On the deep dark web. I have a Tor browser. They drop off a box. Stu matter-of-fact stated. Wow, that's really cool. Cammy looked at him in amazement. I know, I'm Mr. Cool Guy, Stu said as he laughed under his trying to sound serious voice. You know, I don't know about you, Cammy naturally and instinctively began but was interrupted. Stu couldn't quite hide his held-in breath as he tried to swallow that outrageous, naturally big gut laugh. I don't know about you, but I don't know about myself, Cammy said as she started to smile but looked away. The night air and blue, black, purple atmosphere shone upon her face. Corn grew under the porch, and the green leaf stalks popped up beside steps that were broken and turned in such a way that symmetrically they curved more beautifully than an intricate, hard-labored, hand-manufactured spiral staircase. Well, I know that I love you. Loving you is like loving myself, but easier because you are what I want, not what I am. Stu laid down the philosophical inner reflection. Your emphasis is are and am. By this implication, you are stating a declaration of worship. You worship me. Cammy defined Stu's psychological vulnerability. Yes, I can't deny it. I happily profess this, Stu said in all seriousness. Cammy looked into the night sky above the hidden mountains, which blacked out the earth in the far-reaching view of the glowing stars. Stu admired her, admiring the heavens. He drew close to her and put his hands on her hips and his chin on her shoulder. The cocktail of drugs coursing through them had begun to peak to its apex, and Cammy was frozen in her own stare. Stu wanted to tell her something that would make him vulnerable, which would give Cammy his heart. He didn't know how she would react, but he did it anyway. You know what? I'm going to tell you something. You might not like me, Stu apprehensively spoke up as he perked his head up off Cammy's shoulder. What can you possibly tell me after all I've seen that would make me not like you? Cammy said, nervously, halfway laughing. I blocked some things out so I could function. Stu nervously itched his scalp. Just say what's on your mind, don't hold back, Cammy said, concerned. You could tell I need to get this off my chest. I know I'll feel relief if I tell you, but at the same time, I fear that you'll hate me. Stu tried to prepare himself as well as prepare her for the shocking truth. Spit it out, Cammy said sternly.